Welcome to This Just In, the show bringing you the latest advancements in healthcare, strategy, innovation, and public policy. And now, for the fastest voice in healthcare, here's your host, Justin Barnes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of This Just In Radio. I'm your host, Justin Barnes. Today, we're broadcasting live from Tampa, Florida, and the Moffitt Cancer Center. We are graciously invited to join the CancerX Leadership Summit and have several of their leaders joining the show to launch our new Cancer Innovation Series. Many thanks to Dr. Kamal Jathwani and Dr. Nanish Parikh for their hospitality in making this on-location series happen. This specific Cancer Innovation Series was initially derived from a conversation last October at the health conference in Las Vegas, where I became very optimistic about the strides in cancer care, innovation, and patient outcomes. As we're outlining these episodes, it became even more obvious why we need to tell these encouraging stories about innovation, survivorship, and curing cancer. I hope all of you find these episodes as enlightening and encouraging as me, and I expect to host a follow-on series later this spring, so stay tuned. For this episode, my guests are Dr. John Cleveland, Center Director, Chief Scientific Officer, and Executive Vice President for Moffitt Cancer Center, and Xavier Avat, Executive Vice President and Chief Business Officer for Moffitt Cancer Center. Dr. Cleveland, thank you very much for joining us. So from your perspective, what recent advancements in cancer innovation are you most encouraged by, and why are they meaningful?
Well, I think the impact of AI and deep learning and machine learning is going to have a profound effect on everything that we do in cancer, from some pretty basic needs to improving patient access, to transforming our discoveries and driving them into the clinic. I think one of the low-hanging fruits that I'd like to see over the next 12 months would be to use AI to streamline processes for clinical trials.
Okay.
Right? So AI tools should be able to be used to identify patients who are eligible for trials, and by querying their data, their treatment history, their molecular data, should be able to pull from our portfolio of clinical trials what patients are could be put on specific trials that are available at the institute. And that is really important because we closely monitor our clinical trial portfolio on the basis of disease groups. So we have something called clinical research medical directors for each of the disease programs.
Right.
And their job with the disease program and the chair of that program is to develop a portfolio that makes sense for the patients that we have coming to Moffitt and to prioritize those. There's also something called a portfolio mix, where a viable clinical trials research enterprise requires a certain type of mix of trials to generate revenues that will carry the business forward. So this is actually something that's super important and will allow us to put the best trials forward and activate those into our system. And AI could also be used to improve the processes for clinical trial activation. One of the problems of that we're having in the States right now and competing with, for example, China, is the amount of time it takes to put a patient on a trial and to open a trial. So the best case scenario is to open these trials within 30 days. And with the number of processes that are in place and the kind of review that has to happen, it can often take 120 days.
Right.
Right. And that puts us at a competitive disadvantage.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's driving early phase trials overseas that really should be done here. Right. Yeah. And so it ends up creating a lot of work on the back end because things that are done overseas may have to be revalidated here. So I think that's something that we really could, enjoy an immediate impact. So that's super important. AI and machine learning also are going to drive discoveries. And my job as center director is to oversee our research operations. And we're looking for that to really inform best pipelines and best drug developments that we should be pursuing, right? So there's many aspects of that. And so that's a tremendously exciting opportunity for a health system like Moffitt at so many levels, from research to patient access to following patient outcomes and figuring out, how do we best manage a patient to make sure that their care is at an optimum and that we follow them for adverse events. So using digital technologies, we should be able to monitor the effects of diets, sleep deprivation, et cetera, on patient well-being. And we should be able to design trials that can do, for example, nutritional interventions to figure out what kind of foods a patient should be taking before, during, and after therapy.
Yep.
What kind of exercise programs might be meaningful for a patient, during the patient journey. So there's just many aspects by which you can apply digital technologies and then AI to help a physician really improve and personalize treatment and improve the outcomes of patients across the board. And, our need is great. If we're seeing 100,000 patients a year, right, you can tell that the need is urgent. There's 180,000 new diagnoses of cancer in Florida every year. Right. So number 2 in the nation.
Yeah. Dr. Wu actually covered some of that. So what are you currently working on that you're most passionate about, and how does that connect to improving cancer rates or outcomes?
Well, I think, Moffitt is very well known for developing innovative immunotherapies, especially cellular immunotherapies. And one of the new therapies that's rolling out of Moffitt now are dendritic cell therapies. So it's like a third tier of cell therapies that's being developed. And then there's very innovative other kinds of cell therapies that you can conceive. There's an adaptive immune system that people understand and recognize that B cells make antibodies. T cells are there to kill cancer cells and infected cells. But there's also the innate immune compartment that includes like myeloid cells and macrophages. Those can also be engineered to create new therapies against cancer. And they can be reprogrammed to reprogram the tumor microenvironment to improve the efficacy of immunotherapies. So those are super kind of innovative things that we want to do. We also want to apply bioengineering tools, right? And so one of the things that Moffitt is invested in is the physical sciences and trying to apply those to cancer biology and trying to apply those to cancer treatment and prevention. So we have an integrated mathematical oncology department that applies Darwinian principles to understand how a tumor evolves and how treatment therapy evolves in a patient and when you should, switch therapies and what kind of drug you should use to switch. We have a bioengineering department that's there to make new tools, new platforms to improve processes. For example, one of the things that's facing the industry right now is getting cell therapies out to oncology practice. And so how do you do that? You have to improve the processes by which we manufacture these cell therapies and make them affordable. So they're not $500,000 to $600,000 a shot. Yep. You drop it down to something that's more reasonable that a doctor can prescribe and give at an oncology center. So we're working hard on that with the bioengineering capabilities. And then we have a machine learning AI department. Yeah. Right. And so the Institute has invested heavily in these physical sciences to really change how we do business and to accelerate discoveries into the clinic.
Love it. So in our closing question here, looking at the proverbial crystal ball, what strategy, capability, or shift must Moffitt be ready to navigate in 2 to 3 years to meaningfully accelerate progress in these areas?
One of the things that we really have to do is work on literacy.
Okay.
Right? And literacy of AI and applying data science to everything that we do. And so I think that's something that we really need to invest in, because if your faculty and leaders aren't literate in the state of the state, then you're not going to be able to really feel the impact like you should. So I'd say that's one thing that we really have to work on.
That's a great point.
And then I think it's giving the message again and again that Moffitt is part of our DNA is innovation, Mm-hmm. So if you look at our strategic plan, it's called Impact and Innovate, right? And so we embrace this idea of we have to apply new innovations to really, move the needle.
Excellent. Very insightful. Dr. Cleveland, thank you so much for joining us today.
You bet.
See you soon. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
You bet.
And now, Xavier Avat. Thank you very much, Xavier. So from your perspective, what recent advancements in cancer innovation are you most encouraged by, and why is it meaningful?
Well, so first, when you think about the last, let's say, 50 years, there's been a tremendous innovation in the space of cancer, mostly on the therapeutic side. We have drugs today that 20, 30 years ago, we would not even have thought were possible to use with patients, going from small molecules, which was pretty much the only game in town, with radiation therapy. Obviously, that is still a very important modality, to the advances of large molecules, biologics. I lived through that in the early 2000s with Genentech and Amgen and a few others that brought a lot of additional tools to the armamentarium. But what is most exciting today is our ability to combine the toolkit, what I call the toolkit, all these therapeutics and modalities that are available, with our clinical expertise and the computing power that we have today. And I believe that we are that close to literally engineering the chronicity of cancer, transforming or changing that from a death sentence to a disease that you manage over time, playing with a toolkit, all that powered by AI and data.
That's exactly where this conversation came from. Last fall, I met up with Kamal and Nanesh, and specifically, we were talking about the innovations. They were actually speaking on stage about the innovations and what we're doing. We're achieving not only here at Moffitt, but also in other institutions and organizations around the country and the world. And I got very encouraged about our advancements, but also when you start to layer in AI, now we're making advances at a much greater rate. And that's actually, then that's a conversation where CancerX came in. But we'll get to CancerX here in a moment. What are you personally working on that you're most passionate about? And how does it move towards curing cancer or outcomes?
Well, there are a lot of things that I'm passionate about and excited about, and that we're developing at Moffitt and also across other academic centers and the industry that is obviously playing a big role in that as well. But as much as we can better use, if you want, the tool that we have today to treat cancer, there's still a very big gap in the access to this information, maybe the tools, the different therapeutics. But before even the therapeutics, the information, 80% of patients are treated at community centers. And an average oncologist in a community centers sees 60 to 80 patients a day. Guidelines change 240 times a year on average. Knowledge is exploding. When you're a community oncologist, you mean well, you want to do what's best for your patients. You can not keep up with the knowledge and all the publications, all the clinical trials. So this is the second aspect maybe of what's exciting about data, digital, and AI. It's allowing us today to bring this knowledge in a dematerialized way, if you want, to every oncologist across the country or even across the world. And so at Moffitt, we've spent the last couple of years, in fact, building such digital platform. One of them is called ClearOnc. I call that, the platform that packages all the Moffitt expertise so that we can bring it to oncologists wherever they are across the world. And there is no reason why a patient in the middle of Kansas shouldn't be able to benefit from what we've learned here at Moffitt. And so that's a promise of these platforms, and that's very exciting. We are literally launching this platform. The other one is OncoBrain, which is bringing a virtual oncologist to augment a community oncologist, again, wherever this community oncologist is working. And so we are at this exciting stage where we have a product. We've tested it, obviously, with Moffitt. It's very important to partner internally with our faculty and physicians to validate these solutions. We are also now validating, or we have validated it with external institutions as well, so that we can calibrate. And we're literally at the stage where now we are negotiating commercial contracts with community systems for them to onboard these platforms and bring, in a way, the Moffitt experience to their patients, again, wherever they are throughout the country. So that's exciting. And when you get back to this, 80% of patients who are cancer patients who are treated within these community settings, I think we have an opportunity to have an amazing impact on outcomes and to really level off a little bit and erase maybe part of the differences that you see in clinical outcomes between an academic center like Moffitt and a community center that, again, means well, wants to do the right thing, but is just not equipped to follow up with the pace of innovation.
No, very well said. And that supports a lot of what Dr. Jethwani talked about in the show earlier. I guess taking a moment, what are you most encouraged by? How long have you been in cancer and working on Moffitt and cancer research and so forth?
Well, on and off, because I was at Genentech, as I mentioned, but I've been at Moffitt almost 3 years now, 2.5 years.
What's the most encouraging thing that you've seen, for patients? I mean, I have a lot of my shows focused mainly on thought leadership, and a lot of healthcare executives and leaders listen to my show in that regard, but also patients. We're all patients in our own regard, in our own right, but also for the general population. What's the most encouraging thing that you've seen in your time here at Moffitt or in your time in the industry around for patients and how we're making advances in cancer care?
Well, maybe I'll touch on CancerX here, because it's an extension of what I'm seeing at Moffitt as well. Maybe for too long, and it's not perfect yet, but for too long we've had siloed approaches within institutions and then amongst institutions, between industry and institutions like Moffitt, between payers and providers. And so it's been a very siloed view of the world. And cancer doesn't have any parties, doesn't have any sides. I mean, it's touching obviously everybody across every lines of trade, or wherever you live again, or whatever your organization is doing. And what I really see with CancerX is bringing together industry partners, providers like Moffitt and other academic centers, large healthcare provider system, not just the academic systems, investors. We have venture capital part of CancerX, very, very material and critical for startup companies. We have government also. They are not here today because of the shutdown, but they were going to be with us. We have payers also who, I will say, have often been painted as a bad guy around the table, but payers want to do the right thing as well. They just don't want to pay for protocols that are 10 years old. That's just so when you bring everybody around the table and everybody share their perspective, and patient advocacy, as you've seen this morning. When you bring everybody around the table, you start breaking the silos. You understand where the others are coming from, and you look at solutions that are going to be more impactful across the patient journey, or like we discussed this morning, across the startup journey. Startup companies who are innovating are going through a lot of steps. And when they do it, again, in a vacuum, one stakeholder at a time, that's not as productive or effective as if they start understanding the ecosystem. So CancerX, I would say the power of CancerX is the power of the ecosystem that it's creating.
Excellent. I love it. So, following on CancerX, what are your goals for CancerX, and what do you hope to achieve in 2026? I know we're still early on, and you just covered a little bit of it. What are your thoughts there, though?
So CancerX vision is and mission is to contribute to reducing cancer mortality. There is the CancerX goal, the moonshot goal of cutting cancer mortality by 50% by 2047. I don't want to put numbers. The team is working on that. I've been very pushy at trying to get some specific numbers because I think it's important. But I believe we can contribute maybe 20 to 30% through CancerX by tapping the power of data, digital assets, and AI today. And so that's kind of the vision for CancerX. And of course, we have now a strategic roadmap that is still emerging, where we need to refine it a little bit. But a lot of the activities we're doing, we can tie that directly to reducing cancer mortality. One aspect of that is accelerating the onboarding of these innovative solutions that we see with these startup companies within healthcare systems like Moffitt. It's too fragmented right now. It's too slow. And yet the innovative power is here. I mean, the talent is here. So CancerX has a big role to play to help standardize, put together playbooks, and simplify the onboarding of these innovative solutions.
I love it. One last question in our final minute or so. Looking at the proverbial crystal ball, what strategy, capability, or shift must CancerX navigate in 2 to 3 years from now to continue to make meaningful progress?
So I'm a big believer in scaling up efforts. If you help a patient, that's great, but that's only good for this single patient. And so CancerX has a unique opportunity to again bring these different solutions that we shepherd or help with a program to come to bear at scale. It's not sufficient to onboard a small solution here and there within systems and take 15, 18 months each time to do that. We're not going to move the needle if we do that. So if I were to describe where CancerX biggest impact will be, I would say it would be in the simplification and standardization of bringing innovation at scale. Another element, though, that will be maybe a little more challenging to tackle, especially in the short term, is the level of fragmentation. I see a lot of point solutions out there. So a lot of great ideas, again, innovators bringing amazing technologies, applications, platforms, but usually to answer a very narrow problem. And we're going to need to start seeing a little more platforms or solutions that stitch together, if you want, multiple applications so that we can solve maybe a line of service issue instead of just one element of this line of service. That's part of the scalability.
Excellent. I love it. Xavier, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, that's a wrap from Tampa and the Moffitt Cancer Center and CancerX. Thank you all for listening, and I certainly want to offer a note of gratitude to the leaders of CancerX, Moffitt Cancer Center, Advocate Health, Fred Hutch, Amazon Web Services, Rush, and other leading cancer centers, life science organizations, and technology. Together, these voices provide a comprehensive view of how collaboration between providers, researchers, and industry is shaping the next decade of oncology innovation. And a special note of thanks to Jake Reed, my head of media. Jake did a phenomenal job managing this remote podcast and also keeping all of us on track. And as always, a big thank you to all my listeners. We're grateful for you, and you make us better with every broadcast. And please stay tuned in weekdays as we broadcast at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can find me at LinkedIn at Justin T. Barnes or track me on Twitter at HNT Advisor and use the hashtag #ThisJustinRadio so you can respond to your comments from the show. If you miss any part of this broadcast, all of my This Justin Radio shows are posted on Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud Spreaker, and the TuneIn platforms. And also check out the content we published in the new Thought Leadership page at justinbarnes.com. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.